All right, so we're now recording. This is a regular meeting of the Montgomery Selectboard. Today is Monday, August 19th. At least it should be. It's 6:30 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is to review and make any changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to be made to the agenda? Additions or deletions?
I have none.
Mark Kramer is spelled with a K-R-E in there?
It's okay.
Apologies for that. We'll make sure on the minutes it's spelled correctly. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the review and approval of the August 7th special meeting minutes. Just as a reminder, the August 5th regular meeting was canceled due to a lack of a quorum. So is there a motion to approve the August 7th meeting minutes as written?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. We have a motion from Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Emily. Second from Emily. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the August 7th special meeting minutes as written, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have 2 abstentions.
Got it.
Motion carries 3-0-2, and the minutes have been approved. Next, we're gonna move on to Public Works. If there's no objection, I'm gonna bring up an item which I had stuck under old business. I don't know why, because it's not old business, but it's the J State Forest Management Planning process. We've got a couple folks from FPR here this evening who have a pretty long drive home to St. Johnsbury. So if there's no objection, we will pivot and go right to the J State Forest Management Planning process. Any objection from anybody?
None.
Nope. All right, with that, we'll give you guys the floor. They are gonna have a small slideshow projection, so if we wanna scoot to the side and we can. Let's turn on our. Keep your hands to yourself. Actually, do you want me to I'll turn the lights on, you guys can introduce yourselves first, maybe? So yeah, Tiffany, when they give you the high sign, you want the lights when they're ready? Okay. Okay.
All right, so I'm Lou Bushy. I work for Forest Parks and Recreation out of the St. Johnsbury District Office. I'm here with, I'll let you introduce
My name
yourself.
is Paul Savito. I'm a state lands forester out of the St. Johnsbury office.
And we're here basically because we just left Richford, sorry. We're in Montgomery primarily because J State Forest is a long ways from our district office. We've owned J State Forest and portions of it, some of it since the 50s. But we just have never had like a lot of connections to the communities on this side of the hill. So we're coming down just to introduce ourselves and to let folks know that we are kicking off a planning process for that parcel of public land. Got a few slides that we'll just run through. So again, Lou Bushy from Forest Parks Rec out of St. Johnsbury.
Is that my cue?
That's your cue, yes,
There you
please,
go.
thank you. So I'm just gonna give a quick overview of what J State Forest is, what it includes. Just talk briefly about some of the acquisition information, give a rough timeline of what our planning process looks like and where there's opportunities for folks to jump in. And then just open it up essentially to not only what we've heard people ask about, but also to see if there's other things that we should be considering when we're putting this plan together. And then we'll end with some questions. If I can start this presentation, go better. Again, so I'm Lou Bushy, Stewardship Forester out of St. Johnsbury. I chair the district stewardship team, which is made up of Paul and myself from the forestry division with a couple other folks from Forest Parks and Rec, the fish and wildlife staff, the wildlife biologist, the fisheries biologist, and the natural ecologist that works for Fish and Wildlife, and then some folks from DEC, environmental conservation, the basin planners. So in this region, the person that's involved, that's been helping out with some of the planning discussions is Karen Bates, who's the basin planner for the Missisquoi River. So roughly, let me say roughly because it's pretty close to it, but J State Forest is 8,000 acres. It's pretty evenly divided between the 4 towns. As you can see, they're pretty close. Whoops, let me back up a second. So J proper, that light, I can't really point to anything, like the mustardy color right in the middle is the ski lease area. That's so that just to orient folks, most of that stuff to the west of there have is newer acquisitions since in the late 90s, early 2000s, those acquisitions came on. But so the ski area is the biggest one, and then 105 is the northern one. So we go all the way up to the border. Whoops, wrong way. Big portions of the parcels have easements. They're encumbered by easements held by the Vermont Housing Conservation Board. That map you noticed is kind of a north-south string of parcels up along the Long Trail. Green Mountain Club has been very, very involved in conservation of those parcels, more for protection of the Long Trail corridor. But they recently, some of the more recent acquisitions, they've been involved in some really big easement areas in the Big Falls and Big J and Black Falls area. And then there's some other people there. Charlie and I, you were talking about Forest Legacy easements. If I go back a parcel, which isn't showing up great, but there's a couple of parcels up along the greens that are lighter colored up near the Canadian border on the top edge of that map, that light olive color. Those are legacy easements that are, and then the one down here in the southwest corner in Montgomery is the legacy easement we were talking about. So, again, J State Forest. Originally, the acquisition was around the ski area. Currently, they lease about 775 acres from the state. So if you're up skiing at J, riding any of the lifts, you'll notice there's big signs entering J State Forest on all of the lift poles. It was kind of a chore to get them to put those up there, but after, I don't know, probably 10 years of hounding them for it, they finally put them up. But essentially the top 2/3 of the mountain is state land. I'm sure many of you remember the old Stateside Lodge that was up there. It was Stateside Lodge because it was on state land, and so that's kind of the corner of Stateside, kind of diagonally across the main slope is why it was called Stateside.
Finally makes sense.
Yep, it didn't make any sense to me either, and I grew up not far from here, so. Again, just some idea of existing uses that are there. Vast trails, again, the northern portion of the ownership up along 105, there's a pretty major corridor that allows east-west connection across the greens. Obviously, the Long Trail goes through J State Forest. There's about 9 miles of it that from Journey's End at the Canadian border down to 242. And Catamount Trail used to go across the state forest, so we have some weird easements on some of our parcels to allow for that use. But they have since, because of, I don't know if there's conflicts with neighboring landowners, they've moved off the state forest almost entirely, except for right where it crosses 242, right by the ski area. Again, the first acquisition was the ski area. It's that big parcel right in the middle there. And then since then, we've been adding on big chunks of it, but the biggest additions to the forest have been in the town of Montgomery, up in the Big J and Black Falls Basin areas. So those are our newer acquisitions. Roughly our planning process is we initiate field inventory, so we've been collecting resource information. Paul's been working with a few of the UVM forestry students a couple years ago to collect a bunch of forest inventory information. Still processing that data. We've recently had a field naturalist student from UVM who was working with us for the summer, collecting natural community information and doing some of the rare, threatened, and endangered species mapping. She's also been working on some of the existing recreation infrastructure that's out there. One of the things that we have asked her to kind of try to keep track of is the amount of backcountry skiing that's getting established out there without any involvement from us, so we know there's a lot of areas where understory brush has been cut. I don't know if you guys heard about the Hazen's Notch case, where we had caught an individual cutting on state land. If you haven't heard about it, the guy definitely probably learned his lesson, because he spent $75,000 for about 800 trees. Probably a dozen of them were over 6 inches in diameter. So there's some serious consequences.
Keep going.
Okay.
I'll mute
There
them.
are some serious consequences, so we're just trying to get a picture of what's out there. We've talked with Grateful
Treads?
Treads, the bike club. Let me have it on there. So they've reached out to us, Grateful Treads has reached out to us about developing a bike trail up and over into the J State, or J Town Forest, where they have their trail network on municipal land. I've had a number of people, well, Grateful Treads and Grateful Shreds in the winter. We also have been working with to try to help manage some of those backcountry ski areas that we know are out there. Excuse me. Other interests that we've heard, I mean, obviously hunting, fishing, this place gets a lot of like undeveloped uses, so we know that happens out there. There is interest in forest management, but the most consistent inquiry we get, aside from the bikes and the backcountry skiing, is from sugar makers. Pretty much every spring I get a call or two from a group of individuals that abut the state forest, and they're asking if they can expand onto state. We do have a process for authorizing that activity on state land. It's more than just neighbor calling. There's a lot of process, and we have to go through this planning process in order to authorize that use, but it's still open and competitive to other folks. So it's not something we can just offer to the neighbor, but obviously if they're interested, they would have an opportunity if we decide that sugaring is an appropriate use. So at that point, I mean, you can click the light back on.
Sorry,
I got it.
Damn, stealing my.
Paul, if I've missed anything, feel free to chime in. The other thing is, those are the uses that I'm aware of working in St. Johnsbury, about an hour from here every day. So if there's other uses that folks are aware of, we're trying to find a venue for getting that. One of the other things that we do have scheduled, or we are scheduling, is a public meeting where we will just open it up to the broader audience, just to see if there's other interests and what interests there are in the forest from the general public. Starting here primarily because we don't have the relationships out here with the communities like we do with other parcels where we're more actively managing. And also it's oftentimes easier to find out what the local interests are before we go and ask the whole state what they want up here. So that's where we're at, and if you guys have questions, fire away. If not, we will make sure that at least Charlie is aware of when the upcoming public meeting, we're shooting for early to mid-October, but we've got some logistics to sort out.
You gonna log any of it?
We can. Paul, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, so we did complete the initial inventory that was comprehensive. Inventory everything below 2,500 feet on a 10 chain by 10 chain grid, so a pretty robust sample size. 10 by 25 above 2,500. Initial data analysis is showing that I'm going to say less than 1% of that entire ownership and acreage has saw timber sized wood as a representative sample. So we usually use something called QMD, which is a quadratic mean diameter, which is the tree of average basal area, which is an average size, basically a weighted average size tree. And like I said, less than 1% of the total area sampled has trees that would even qualify as what we have a spec for saw timber. So I think there are provisions to manage, certainly for forest health and for habitat.
Speaking to that, so saw timber versus habitat cut, would you be willing to speak to the group about that?
Sure. I mean, they don't have to be mutually exclusive necessarily, but there may be times where we would intervene for reasons other than producing saw timber to either usually to diversify habitat or to try and create habitat for specific species.
One of the things up in J that there's a fair bit of is American Beach, which we know was identified through the documentation, the easement monitoring, the documentation that came with the acquisition. Our easements allow for us to manage for that specific habitat type. I say all of this with the caveat that there is a new pathogen coming into the Northeast that's killing our beech trees, so it's kind of an interesting dynamic. We don't really know what's happening. I mean, we know it's killing the trees, but we don't know where it is or when it's gonna be here, so it's gonna change some of the conversations about it, but anyway. We can manage beech for bear, for hard mass, for wildlife species. We can manage age structures of stands, so doing some harvest to create younger forests for different suites of songbirds. There's a lot of overlaps between the two of them. Like Paul said, they're not mutually exclusive, but there are things that you do to benefit suites of species or individual species that do involve some manipulation of tree forests. So we can cut trees. Not sure how much of it will be in this plan, because it was cut before we got it all. Pretty actively, we're spending a fair bit of money. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Black Falls Road, where it goes up onto the state forest. I think we're up to almost $175,000 to stop the road from washing down the mountain. Just some of the infrastructure that we kind of inherited from a previous landowner, so. Yeah.
Chris, did you have a question?
Well,
Or?
I just want to point something out. The person that was cutting that timber was not a logger, that was a private landowner. That was doing that cutting, that they stole the timber off from Hazen's.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah, no,
I just want to make that point.
Yeah.
well, it was definitely, I was not suggesting that
No.
anybody that's
We
backcountry.
just keep going on the news of the loggers, and just want to point that out.
Yeah.
Yep, I think the news covered that one pretty well, pointed out that he was not there for any interest other than his
And his ski
selfish
trails.
interest of
Yeah.
skiing.
So I guess I will say, this is firmly with my Montgomery resident hat on and nothing else. That, you've mentioned that it was cut pretty heavily in the past. It's a relatively young forest, thinking about mean stand diameter. As such, it lacks a lot of the structural complexity that we see in older forests, which is beneficial for wildlife. There's also elements that are really beneficial as far as flood resiliency goes. When you think about forest structure, various canopy strata, catching rain, leaf density, wood on the ground. There's even techniques you can use, contour felling, that slows down water once it hits the ground. There's also techniques where they're called strategic woody additions, where you go in and do in-stream work to intentionally anchor wood in streams to slow it, keep it spread up over the banks, essentially slowing water down. It'll move less material and be lower risk of flooding downstream. And so as a community which is downstream from a lot of the brooks, think about Hannah Clark Brook, Black Falls Brook, I think that one angle that I'd be interested in is, I think actively managing it where it's appropriate is great, and where we can do so to enhance forest structure and structural complexity in a way that gets to wildlife habitat, but also thinks about flood resiliency opportunities. I'd love to see that kind of looked at in the plan.
Perfect. All right.
Cool. Well, yeah, when the next public meeting comes up, let us know and we'll get the word out, put it on the website.
Okay.
But really appreciate you guys coming tonight.
I asked in Richford as well, but is there a big community space that we could host like multiple towns? Montgomery's certainly more central than Richford is.
Yeah, we have the Montgomery Town Hall on Main Street, which can hold
150, 200.
scheduletowhall@gmail.com.
Just email me and just email me and we can help figure it out. Yeah. But don't remember that. Just, you got my email, let me know and we'll figure it out.
Okay,
So, but yeah,
perfect.
yeah, scheduling allows, that'd be a great spot.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Okay,
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's 6:51. We do have a actual time pegged to the sugaring discussion, which I think a lot of folks are here for tonight. So we'll use this next 10 minutes just to talk briefly about some other public work stuff on the agenda, and then at 7 we'll pivot right to that conversation. I do want to start it at 7 because the agenda does say specifically 7 p.m. and if we've got folks joining on Zoom or in person, we want to make sure that we don't jump the gun on them. So I guess first up, Public Works updates. The one thing on the agenda here that I had noted that we've carried over from previous ones is that we do have the FY24 municipal grants and aid reimbursement now moving forward. All that material has been submitted and those funds are running. And we also did look at some sites with friends at V-Trans for the FY25 grants and aid location. Do you want to talk briefly about the plans there?
Yeah, so we met with Ashley that manages the grant and aid program, Scott and I did. And we found 2 locations on Amadon Road that we were gonna repair anyways, do ditching and some culverts. And so she actually sent a form saying we can go ahead with those projects, because after July 1st, we could start working on the FY25. So we were gonna do those projects anyways, and so their share was 17.5 and ours is like 4,000.
Yep.
So we're gonna, it has to be done by September 2025.
Yep.
But we were planning on doing these locations anyways, so we have
This
to
is
go
the Better
ahead.
Back Roads.
Yes, Better Back Roads.
Yep.
Is
Yeah.
that going out for bid?
I think we just been hiring an excavator and just doing it ourselves, most of the work. Yeah, it's just some like minor ditching and,
Great. I
yeah.
do stuff like that for Waterville, Belvedere, and Cambridge. So
Oh,
I just
okay.
wondered if it went out for bid for other people to put in a price, because
Yeah.
town of Montgomery doesn't own an excavator.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I would think that people in the community, that if they own one, could potentially
yeah, if you
bid
want to,
the.
if you want to reach out to us,
Yeah.
our email, just send me an email.
Yep.
publicworksmontgomery@gmail.com, and then, yeah, we'll get your information.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's always good to have other operators
Yeah.
in the Rolodex, you know, because,
Yep.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
cool. And just to be clear, a lot of this work that we're looking at now with the ditches is looking at the hydrologically connected ditch segments. So those areas that people have noticed where they're being stone lined that are near streams. So where ditches intersect with stream corridors, the state has gone through and done mapping in every community to look at kind of your green light, yellow light, red light ditches as to where the largest amount of sedimentation from ditches is coming into streams. And so the segments Mark's pointing to are things that have been mapped for a while as being problematic ditches that are connected to streams. And that's why the locations are chose where they were.
yeah.
The next item on your public works, as far as updates goes, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the meeting, but the Reagan Road Power Project, this has been something that we've discussed for a couple of years now. This is getting dedicated power up to the pump station on Reagan Road, which is gonna help with well service to water in the center. It's also gonna be a spot that we can put new comms stuff up there to help with emergency services communications, as well as in-town road crew.
Yeah.
So do you want to just give an update on the work there?
I think they installed the conduit today up to the site. I know it's not completely installed yet, but then, so that's done. And then, they'll be running the power up there, to get that done. And they did some ditching on each side of the road. Yeah.
Great. So that's gonna keep going. We are gonna end up, and I'll sit down with you and Scott and talk about this, but we are gonna end up putting a small structure up there.
Yeah.
To house some of the equipment that needs to be sheltered and heated.
Yeah.
So that that's protected. Any other just general updates, Mark, on road stuff?
I believe after they get this project done, they're gonna be going up, Route 58, working on some ditching and culverts up there, and then, to and working up that road, and then come around Amadon, I think, yeah.
Great. Any questions from board members for Mark? All right, if not, is Anthony Mamoni here? Hi, nice to meet you. So we do have this topic on the agenda. We're a little bit before 7 o'clock. We could talk about it now and then pivot or push it till after the sugaring conversation.
Let's start.
Yeah. So you'd reached out to us about the concern. Do you want to just kind of lay out the concern?
Yes. My name is Anthony Mallory. I live up on Brushwood Valley Road, about 400 feet past the town turnaround. And we have a culvert there, which I view as extremely dangerous. The road is always washed out there. It's washed out there right now. If you were to drive up there, you were to put your tire on the edge of that road and drive down, and if you didn't know that culvert was there, you would go into it. And when, during heavy rains, it washes out into the street, you know, a foot, 2 feet at times, and there's constant water erosion. And it's not just a drainage ditch. And I'm hearing great things here about forestry and water quality, and there is a pristine brook that feeds through that culvert. And if you walk across the street up the mountain of 200 or 300 yards, it bubbles out of the side of the mountain and it comes down and it flows through that culvert. And it's not a drainage culvert, it's a pristine stream, but it's not long enough. It needs to be 4 or 5 feet longer. And sediment is constantly running into it. And so near my house, I have a gravel pit there. That's where I get gravel to throw on my driveway. It washes off the road, it washes down that stream, it pools up there, it defiles the water, and I pick it up and I put it on my driveway and I use it as filler, or sometimes I put it in my bucket of my tractor and I bring it up and I pour it in the culvert so that we have our road back. And it would be so easily solved if we could just put a longer culvert in there. And I know what the debate is. You know, the debate is that we live on a class 4 road and that, you know, the town doesn't have to maintain that, but I'd like to point you out to this map right over here that shows all of this yellow is rural residential. And the rural residential area on this map shows that the class 3 road extends past the town turnaround, past this damaged culvert, all the way to Kevin Soren's driveway. And right here, if I may, is the Montgomery zoning regulations. And it says right here that the rural residential district encompasses the areas outside the village centers along class 3 town roads and state highways. This says that we live in a class 3 road, rural residential. This says that we live in a rural residential district. The town says we live on a class 4 road. You know, this map from the town, facilities and services, shows that the class 3 road goes past this dangerous culvert. This agricultural soils shows that this town road goes past this dangerous culvert. The proposed land use shows that the class 3 road goes by this culvert. And so does this critical areas map. This is not anything I pulled anywhere but from the town book. That's what it says. And so what we want to know up in the class 4 area, because often, you know, if you're happen to have bought land and built your home on a class 4 road, you're a second class citizen in Montgomery because you can't get any work done up there. So 10, 12, 15 years ago, we had a major damage wipeout up there where 4 or 5 culverts got wiped out. And the town did come up and they replaced those culverts and they did a great job replacing those culverts. But this culvert, for some reason, was put back in the ground the way it was. And not only that, but it was slid up the hill a little farther out this side and a little less this side, so the problem's even worse. Now at the time, Dave Howell, who's my neighbor down there, said that he talked to the town crew that was up there, and the town crew said, yeah, we know, it's too short, it should be replaced. and, we're gonna get up here, we're gonna replace it. Now, that was 12, 15 years ago, that promise was made to us. But 4 or 5 years ago, Levitt, this is his last name, Kevin Levitt, who is an independent contractor, he was hired to work down that road, and he couldn't get past the culvert because too much of it was washed out. The culvert that we had to squeeze around every day with our cars, he couldn't get through there with his dump truck or his machinery. So he was stopped right there in the road. He contacted the town. The town immediately asked him if he would, fix the culvert. They paid him to fix the culvert. And I'm watching it and I'm talking to him, and he says, yeah, I talked to the town and I told them this culvert is too short and it should be longer. And that was 5 or 6 years ago, and it still hasn't been replaced. And I really have a lot of trouble understanding this concept. If I could read this to you, it says Montgomery zoning regulations. It says all stormwater management systems shall be designed to maximize on-site infiltration and treatment of stormwater and minimize surface runoff. We could go up there right now, and there's all kinds of runoff there. The water goes directly from the road, dirt, silt, mud, oil from undercarriages, rust from undercarriages, grease from under, it all just goes right into this stream. There's no soil mitigation there. Now, I'm not an expert on culvert installation, but I was an environmental science teacher for 30 years, before I retired and I moved up here, and I know something about water degradation and soil erosion, and that could be so easily corrected. It could be so easily corrected up there. All we were asking for is a longer culvert, a longer culvert. Now, there's 6 homes up there paying taxes, 6 of us. So just figuratively, let's say we each pay $2,500 a year. So that means that we're paying, $15,000 a year in taxes in 1 year. So in 10 years, the 6 of us has paid $150,000 in taxes in 10 years. Is it too much to ask for a culvert that works? A culvert that doesn't degrade the water course up there. This pristine brook that bubbles out of the side of the mountain is being degraded because the culvert is too short. And it needs to be another 5 feet, and it needs to have soil around it, and it needs to have vegetation planted in it. And it needs to be able to filter the runoff before it gets into the stream. Now, I drove down by the town garage on Saturday, and I took a picture of the 17 brand new culverts that are down there, 17 brand new culverts. I want to ask, and we want to ask the 6 homeowners up there, why can't we get one of those culverts? Why can't we finally, just finally, I'd like to invite you to come up there and stand with me by that culvert, stand with me and tell me you think that there is integrity in the way that that culvert is installed. I invite everybody here and everybody at home, I'll put on a pot of coffee. Come on up and look at that culvert and make the assessment for yourself. It's wrong. It's wrong, and it should be fixed once and for all. And that's why I'm here asking that the town, once and for all, please fix that culvert. It's dangerous. And I want to play another scenario.
Yeah, Anthony, actually, we're gonna have to wrap up because we do have a lot to get to. But I think we've heard your point.
Yes.
And so I appreciate you coming tonight and chatting with us about it. A couple things that I do want to point out. One is the maps that are in the town plan are developed by regional planning, and each of those layers on the maps is a file that they access from somewhere. I don't know where. The town highway map is the legal map that shows the road classifications.
Right.
And there's a number of things from that map that don't align with those roads. So as far as the road designations, just understand that those maps are they're good for planning, but they're not considered gospel.
I understand that.
And then also, if I can just keep going. So I think nobody here is going to, hey Larry, could we, if you want to go outside to talk?
No.
Okay, thanks. I think nobody here is going to disagree with you that the culvert is too short and that there's an issue with the culvert. And I don't think anybody here is going to disagree that the way it is now does cause both a potential safety hazard and environmental concerns around sedimentation and erosion. As you pointed out, the town does have a class 4 road policy that does say that we will not essentially maintain class 4 town roads beyond a certain degree of maintenance. We do have road maintenance agreements that we've worked with on a number of landowners in towns who live on class 4 roads to do work, looking at getting material in, grading, even culverts. And so, again, I don't think that it's a case of we can't or don't want to assist up there. It's that, again, thinking about the 17 culverts in the yard, those are 17 culverts that are going into class 2 and 3 roads that need to be changed out. And because of
Right.
the road
Well, we have
classification.
paid $150,000 in taxes over 10 years. Can't we get one culvert?
Understood.
One culvert.
Understood. And I can't speak to whoever you talked to 15 years ago who said they would change it, because I don't know who that was. But I do think that, we can look at working with you to get that changed out. I think we priced out the work up there, and it would be about $5,000 to go in, do all the dirt work, get the culvert replaced, bring in more material. So, understand that there are certain priorities the road crew is working on because of road classifications, and it's not to say that any citizen is better than any other citizen. It's just we have a class 4 road policy that we adhere to, because it's a policy the town has. And so that's what's driving what's happening up there.
Well, let me just quickly paint a scenario for you. Because we have lots of young people at the end of that road now, because we have a huge family down there with lots of grandkids, and they're all driving too fast on that road, and most of them aren't wearing seatbelts. So look at this scenario. An 18-year-old girl, somebody's daughter is coming from another state to visit somebody down the end of the road, and she doesn't know that that culvert is washed out 2 feet into the road, and she's driving down the road, and she sees headlights coming the other way at 11 o'clock at night, and she pulls over to the right, not knowing that the road is not there. And she drives into that 8 foot deep, it's 8 feet deep, to the bottom of that stream. And she plunges into that and catapults through her windshield, and she ends up crippled in my driveway. And that's what my wife and I fear. We're waiting for the crash one night. We're waiting to see, if we're gonna hear it, am I gonna walk up there and find a body in our driveway? Who's gonna pay for that? What price do you put on a child's life? I mean, is it a $1 million suit? Is it a $5 million suit? Who pays for that? Do we have insurance that would cover negligence? Because it's a class 4 road, it's okay to be unsafe? I understand the class 4 road, but is it okay to be unsafe because it's a class 4 road? And that's what that is. It's unsafe.
Yes, no.
It's not safe.
We agree with you completely. If you want, I can get our attorney to write you a legal opinion on legal liability, if that would, help in any way with this conversation. I will tell you, there's probably 8 to 10 more miles of class 4 road in the community that are in worse shape than that. And so, no one's saying that they want to see a young girl die, and no one's discounting public safety, but we also understand that we've got how many miles of road in the community?
43.
So, and we need to look at all of this stuff under the policies and frameworks that we have. And so I totally appreciate you coming to this, and we can look at budgeting for this and to get the work going. But just understand that the prioritization that we're using in terms of where road maintenance gets done is driven by the policies the communities adopted and worked with for decades. And so, again, I don't think anyone's discounting public safety or playing first class, second class citizens.
Or water quality, because the water quality is being degraded because that culvert isn't wrong. It's being degraded. So I look at all this about our forests and how healthy they are and our little conversations, and there's degradation going on there right now, and you could do something about it.
I'm not arguing with that, and we are doing work around the community to stop degradation in a number of areas. So just
Not that area though.
No, not
because that's class 4 road.
Okay. Well, again, I do thank you for coming, and again, as we look towards, work and budgeting and prioritization, we will roll this into the planning that we're doing, and then hopefully we can keep this conversation going and we can get that addressed up there. So,
Okay, thank you.
appreciate you coming tonight, Anthony. So it's 7:10, so we're gonna pivot to the conversation this evening about sugaring. So just as kind of a preamble to this, As a lot of folks are aware, the select board has been working on this kind of long-term strategic planning process with the road crew and folks in the community to put together a plan that looks at both annual needs, long-term capital projects, regular maintenance, communications about roads, soup to nuts, how do we manage roads in the community? It's kind of an evolving document. It's still in very much draft form, and we do expect that as we get farther into it, it's going to be a living document that we'll keep amending and working from. As the town has been working through this process, we were asked by a number of people to have a conversation around sugaring and the impacts of sugaring in the community. Now, I wanted to say, I think that everyone on this board and hopefully everyone in the community understands sugaring is a really important part of our rural economy. It's incredibly important to the working landscape that really defines Vermont, especially this part of Vermont. Franklin County produces more maple products than the rest of the state combined. So from a rural economic development, employment standpoint, and just tradition standpoint, it's really important. That said, just by nature of when the sugaring activity happens and when sap needs to be moved, it can have an impact on our roads. So there is potentially a conflict there. We do not have any solutions tonight. We're not coming with a solution. I don't know if we're going to leave here with a solution. This is really just a forum to have folks present ideas, opinions, feelings, have some catharsis together maybe, I don't know. What I want to make sure this is not is kind of a beat up on the other folks conversation tonight, because that's not going to get us anywhere. And if folks, can't kind of be polite, we're going to ask them to leave, or we're going to just stop the conversation. Because, anything that deals with roads, as we know, can get emotional, because it's what we drive on, it's what we use, it's a shared public resource. So that's kind of just the preamble to this discussion. Again, we don't have a framework for this. We're not coming here with a solution to run by you. This is just a forum for conversation. And so with that, I'll open it up to whoever wants to start us off. And I will ask that if anybody hasn't signed in, please make sure you do so before you leave, just so we have your name for the record, for the minutes. I've never known anybody in Montgomery to be shy, so come on.
They fixed Beacon Road last year because they were sugaring down the hill. So that did work when they were done the sap trucks. Because the sap trucks, not have to be mean about the truckers, but them roads are not made for them heavy trucks. They don't let the loggers go down through them roads, so yes, sugaring is important, but you know what I mean? So there's a start to open something.
Yeah, and I will point out, I think most people are aware of this, but especially when it comes to differentiating between logs and sap, we post our roads at certain points of the year for weight. Agricultural products, milk, sap, they have an exemption from the road posting, and so they are allowed to run. With a different hat on, I'd tell you, I feel your pain that you can take something out of a tree and truck it, but not the tree itself. But that's a conversation for another day altogether.
I just opened it up here,
Yeah.
that's all.
Well, thank you.
Nobody else? Come on.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that Jordan did on Reagan Road was he talked to landowners and he ran a pipe down to the main road.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot on the travel, weights and traveling on the roads, which we appreciate, him doing that. So that helped us a lot. So now we're just kind of looking at some other places in town and trying to see if we can come up with solutions to how to move the sap, and try not to break up the roads and stuff.
Seems like you'd be able to do that on North Hill.
I mean, the weather has changed. Usually you would get like freezing in the morning so they could haul the sap out when the ground's frozen, but we've had five thaws this spring, and so that doesn't really happen anymore. And that's some of the issue is, pulling out when the roads are, and it's not really, we have a couple roads that there's only like 6 or 7 houses on, and I don't feel it's fair to the landowners, the other people on that road, to have a truck going up through and ruining the road, and then they can't get out. So, I don't know what the solution is, but.
Okay, can we I forgot to say
Yeah.
beforehand, but if folks could just state their name before they speak, just so we can get it for the record. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to-
Jamie, and I think a lot of it could do with some of the ditching, like on Reagan Road, the road breaks up very bad with the hill. I mean, I've lived there 6 years now, and
Yeah,
I mean, you guys just ditched in front of that one house. I mean, that'll probably help that one
yeah,
section, but
there was a spring in
the
there, so
whole-
we,
the
yeah,
whole hill, I mean, down below Worthington's corner there, I mean, that,
yeah.
it breaks up there so bad, but the ditching, there's, I mean,
That's why we're working on the ditching,
right,
is trying
but I
to
mean,
get that
we
taken
started
care of.
up here
Yeah.
and the problem area wasn't really right there, it's more down the hill. So, yeah, it's probably gonna help up here, but like down there, it didn't do anything to that. And, I mean, you guys dumped how many loads of stone in there, what, 3 years ago? And I mean, it still breaks up, there's obviously water in the road because it can't go anywhere.
Yeah, see, what we're trying to do is find those spots and put some tile in, you know, to drain the water out and get ditching
I
done.
bet Bruce could
You know.
point out every single spot on
Yeah.
that hill where the water comes out of the road.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think,
So, I
you know,
mean,
fair, I think some of
it
the,
is fair, yeah,
But I do,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure.
we do
heavy
understand.
loads going up and down and it don't help it, but I think
Well-
more ditching would probably.
Well,
make
this is
some of
why
it.
we, you know, we looked on Amadon Road because there was a lot of problems there. And that's why we're looking at doing some work there to try to help improve that road for, you know, to get some ditching done and culverts so that the water does flow better. No, I agree, you know, our ditches are, we are behind on ditching, and so that's some of the issues, you know, with it, yeah.
I think that as we're talking about this, not only are the seasons shifting and changing, but the technology for sugar makers is increasing. So there's more sap being drawn out of each tree. And so there's more and more being hauled, which is excellent for the sugar makers, but maybe not so much for the roads. Like maybe the roads could have handled what they had 5 years ago when the weather was different and the technology wasn't as great.
But I know a lot of people now are ROing it, so you don't have to,
Which is-
haul as much, so that's, I mean, if that's possible.
Right.
The road
That
broke
helps.
up last year, I mean, not quite as bad as the year before, but Jordan didn't truck any sap
Anything.
on our road.
Yeah.
I'm Jordan, I spent $30,000 the
Yeah.
following year because I was walking with a bullseye off my back because everyone thought it was the sugar makers on the Reagan Road.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, I put that line through, and the following year, the road was even worse than what we did the year before. I even got stuck in my own pickup truck
yeah,
with four-wheel drive trying to check my tanks, and that's just a pickup truck, not hauling nothing. We pumped all the sap down, and everyone was glad that we spent the money, but I wasn't very happy spending my $100,000 truck in the middle of the road stuck, trying to go somewhere.
well, that's why we're up there doing some
But
ditching right now and culverts and
I think
trying
that
to.
it's not only just the seasons, I
No.
think, like Mark says, we are behind on ditching,
Mhm.
culverts. I dug across the road to put 2 sleeves in to get this pump line done, and there's only a foot of gravel in the center of the road. Our
Well-
roads are way behind.
Well, what happened was the '97 flood is washed out a lot of the roads, and the material they put back in, they were just trying to get the roads passable, so a lot of the material they put back in was not very good material, and now that's what we're working with
We dug
now.
up stumps
I
right
mean-
across from Carroll Farmers.
Yeah.
Out of
Yeah.
the road, big boulders.
So-
The roads are not built, regardless, for the sugar makers or the residential or the people who live on that road. It is not built for the traveling that we are doing. Every household member that lives there, over 15 years old, has a car now. It's not like back in the day where your wife stayed home with the kids and you had one car that went out for 12 hours and came back. That car
And-
might come out in and out of that driveway 5 times a day,
Well-
or it may stay there once.
And a lot of
Or
these
you got-
roads had 7 houses on them, now they have 30 houses on them, so
And
they've
we have
increased the
not
traffic.
Put up
Yeah,
material on the road to deal with the traveling, regardless of who's traveling it.
yeah.
Fuel guys, everybody, UPS, FedEx, we got everybody traveling roads. So it's not just the farmers that's tearing up the roads, it's everybody. Because they're not either
yeah,
working
I
every
mean,
day, or
well-
they're home, or they're working from home. There's a lot of,
the other issue is too, is you have a lot more fuel trucks, you have more propane trucks, because there's more houses up there. And you have all these fuel companies that one will follow the other one,
yes,
if they could kind of coordinate, you know, when they go up there and stuff too.
Yeah, and
We talked to a lot of them to try to coordinate.
and
So
Jordan,
yeah, we're not just blaming, it's
Yeah.
a combination,
And I'm not-
it's a
I'm just
combination
making
of things.
everyone aware that
Yeah.
it's not just those trucks traveling 2 or 3 times up there that's tearing up the roads for the
Yeah.
day. It's the extra 30,
Oh, yeah.
40 cars that were never there 15 years ago that are there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to highlight, Jordan, that what you brought up is a really great point, and Mark alluded to this too, but you know, a lot of the roads in town were put back together just to get them open after events. And so
We're still
one
working.
thing as part of this longer range plan, one thing we're looking at doing is going back, and there's ditch work, there's fixing, but there's also opportunities to go all the way to the base and rebuild it. I look at North Hill as an example of where we had an opportunity to do that. Oddly enough, it was using FEMA money after a flood event, but we were able to go there and actually go dig down, put material, and that road's held up really well. So I think part of the, one sec, Tosca, part of the plan is to go back and address this more kind of like holistic problem we're seeing everywhere. So Tosca, go
So
ahead.
my point, I'm Tosca and I live on North Hill, and I have had this absolute pleasure after the Halloween flood. I don't remember the year, but it was 8
5
years.
years ago.
5.
Yeah.
The entire road was gone, and it had to be rebuilt from scratch. And we had no mud for 5 years until this year. This 5 thaws in a row. And
Yeah.
a couple guys sugaring, small trucks,
Yeah,
not a big deal, but more and more people are tapping their trees and selling sap, and that's all well and good. But this weather pattern, it didn't matter. We were just as doomed as everybody else, so it's like the road was rebuilt and literally not one frost heave for 5 years, nothing until this year. So I think it's a combination, and the other point I'd like to make is when I go to town meeting every year and our road budget is discussed, people get really upset how much money is spent. If we want good roads, we
Yeah.
need to be willing to pay. And it's not gonna be a matter of, you know, we gotta separate the school budget craziness and say, this is what we spend on our local portion, which is barely anything compared to the school budget, and we need to pay. We need to hire 4 guys with excavators, not just 1 guy. Cause Alan Dusso is a beast, but he can only work 1 road at a time. If you've got 4 excavators out there busting, I'd pay for it. I think everybody should be willing to pay more money to get it done.
you know, then the
Because
cost of materials has gone so
it's
up and
not
culverts
gonna
and
get
everything.
any cheaper, so I would support increasing our road budget and,
Thanks, Elsa.
and hiring more guys. That's my opinion.
Go to Suzanne.
One of the things that came to the table at one point was the possibility of, and I'm not saying this is all sugar makers' fault or anything, it's multiple reasons as we've discussed, but with those heavy loads going up and down the roads, if sugar makers could be obligated in some way or would be willing to either donate time and materials or equipment or men on the ground, or else pay some sort of fee or stipend towards roads as compensation for their use during that season and the damages that might come from that. Is that something that,
So they tried to do that in Belvedere with Sweet Tree, cause they had like 60,000 taps in there, and they did, Sweet Tree fought it right tooth and nail right to the end.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a constant battle with the roads in every community, it's not just
Totally.
Montgomery. I mean,
I know in
originally-
Fairfield, like Brandon's, they offered their trucks and they pay
Right.
for some material, they give the town so much money per year to help, you know.
But Waterville and Belvedere and Cambridge, they all, I mean, Bryce's, they got 100,000 taps.
I mean, this
They
is
ruined the
everywhere.
road in front of, I mean, the farm on Bryce Road, I mean, our road gets bad, but not Bryce Road bad, I mean, that gets really, really bad. But it's a constant battle with, but they haven't ditched that road either,
Yeah.
so I mean,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of problems, but like, I've lived on the Reagan Road 5 or 6 years now, and I've never seen them spread gravel by my house. I mean, the road just keeps sinking down, the grass berm on my lawn is, you know, a foot higher than the road. So, I mean, they just keep grading, and it keeps washing down the hill into our ditches, and the road just keeps depleting, so there's nothing there. It's not like every year there's a couple loads spread on it or anything like that, and I know the cost of it is unreal, but
No,
we don't add anything to any of the roads.
Yeah, we do.
Except for
I
when,
mean, that's untrue, we do. We put,
I mean, I've
we
never
put,
seen it.
we put like 60 or 100 loads on this from January to March on the roads.
Hey Larry, come on,
So,
peanut gallery.
Yeah, right, of stone.
up stone, no, and gravel, you know,
Seat for
I
him over
mean,
here.
yeah, so that's
Take his
untrue. We do
sash.
put material back on the roads. I mean,
Yeah, we'll go to Peter.
Suzanne, does that conversation of a fee or time and material extend to loggers and other overweight trucks that use roads on a regular basis?
No, it
I mean,
don't.
that hasn't been discussed.
Yeah,
It was mostly just brought up in the context of this conversation around
Yeah.
sugaring.
That is not something that the board has discussed. It's been on, something that's been brought to us,
Yeah.
I will say, just to clarify. Good?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Chris.
Yeah, my name is Chris. When you're logging on somebody else's property, you're paying that landowner is landowner that pays taxes to the town. So why would they think about making loggers pay money to
No.
fix roads?
Well, the roads are posted
Just like
anyway.
sugaring though, I mean, if you're paying the landowner, that landowner is paying taxes to the town, so it's not like, you know what I mean?
I mean, I guess the big thing is,
The
I
town
mean,
doesn't take care of their roads. I mean, the ditches are above the roads even on Hastings.
is we do need more money for our road budgets. I mean, that's the
Take it from
bottom
the
line.
school
We, I mean,
Right,
Okay.
taxes that just
And-
got raised.
I want to just keep going. I want to give folks who haven't had a chance to speak yet a chance. Matt, I saw your hand up in the back. Do you want to?
I wish it, Matt, not P.E.G, he's not road, I wish it was articulate and passionate about as roads as the guy who was in here, the gentleman, when I walked in, our road, but I'm not. But, I'd first like to say, I think the road crew, the road commissioner, the select board are doing an incredible job with what you got. It is a complete mess, and you guys are doing everything you can, and I do appreciate it. We are sugarers, but we're also live on Hazel's Notch Road, and for the last 3 or 4 years, we have not been able to get to our house with a car. And so we take a 4-wheeler down to either a snowshoe or Harvey's or somewhere. And sometimes this year, we couldn't even get the 4-wheeler through, our side-by-side. So it's getting really bad. We're sugar, and I would personally, although people here don't agree, I would personally be fine with paying something to help the roads, to get it off the table, because I think it's the smallest of the issues here. On Hazen's Notch Road this year, we had a lot of guests come up around the holiday, and they couldn't make it to our house. There were nobody hauling sap in December, nobody.
No.
Yeah.
And they couldn't make it in December. In the rest of the year, James Howard and us that haul sap, we're all below the intersection of Amadon Road. I would say the intersection above Amadon Road was the worst. Nobody was hauling sap on that road.
Yeah.
So I'd still be happy to pay something to help, because it doesn't help hauling sap, it doesn't make any situation better, but I don't think it would have anything to do with the issues we're talking about, or pretty minor kind of impacts. But I'd like to get it off the table. I read the long-term plan, I did send you a note, Mark, and I just don't think it's bold enough. We're really not, you're talking about incremental changes, and it's very difficult to tee up to the town in a quantitative way what the cost would be and what the benefit would be on an individual road. We heard that earlier today, like how do you say whose road should, get more work? How much will it cost? What's the standard in an engineering sense? And I did send you guys the U.S. Department of Transportation guidelines for dirt roads, which you probably have.
Yeah, we have all that, yeah.
And I'm sure you have. And none of our roads are even remotely close to any of those. And those are like minimum standards. They're talking about 36 inches, of material down with almost no fines until the top 6 inches, et cetera. So I think we have to be a little bit more bold. The one proposal I put forward is Route 58 is drastically different than the rest of the town's
Yeah.
roads. It takes a large part of the budget, and as most people know, it's a state highway. It's not, you know, our town road, but we're still doing the maintenance.
Well, no, we determined it is a town road. But we do get state aid, and we're trying to get more state aid for that road because of the traffic. So we're gonna put a traffic control, you know, see how much traffic is on it.
Yeah, I
A
said-
car counter?
You know,
Yeah,
car counter, it's just, we're trying, you know, most of our state aid goes just for that road because of the traffic,
Yeah.
you
I-
know, so.
Somehow working with the state,
Um,
I think that is,
That's the
something
route.
that's bold enough that it would free up money for the rest of the town's roads.
That's, yeah.
And so somehow getting the state through some grant or some ownership of that, we've already paved the first mile up of Mill Hill and along the little flat above Mill Hill and above Regan Road. I think the answer would be to pave another mile or two or whatever the residents wanted further up that road. I see the guys working, they'll have it graded like earlier this summer.
Yeah.
Perfectly. We'll have a rainstorm and 2 days later be potholed. We just drove down it now. I mean, it's in pretty bad shape.
Because there's, yeah.
And there's just way too much traffic with the weather patterns. And, you know, it's beyond the actual data which I sent you had the maximum they recommended was 400 cars a day traffic.
Yeah.
But the beginning was 60. So anywhere between 60 to 400 they recommend paving. And the last 2 years it's shown over 500.
It's even difficult for us even to grade that road. You know, we try grading it and then cars are passing us and dangerous.
We're way
and-
beyond what
Yeah,
the
lower
road
the
was
speed limit.
designed for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant, I don't know that the plan is bold enough,
Okay.
because this costs a lot of money to fix all the town roads. And if there isn't, we know what happens at the town meetings, and some people are on very tight budgets, which we all can respect.
Yeah.
If we don't do something bold, I mean, you're, as fast as we're gonna be able to be fixed up one area, other areas will be degrading. It's like a really old house where you're just
Yeah.
constantly going back. So I would look for my overall comment would be, I think we have to look for bolder solutions than just incremental, we're gonna do this ditching here, this ditching there.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Larry, see your hand up?
Just for clarification, did I understand 58 is a town road now?
It is
Is that what you
classified, yes, we talked to Bethany Reimers at Northwest Regional Planning, and she said it is a town road.
How did that come about?
That's the way that's the way it's been, yeah. I mean,
Why is it called?
that's what she said.
So how did they,
I don't think that's gonna be possible.
I mean, we do get state aid for it, you know, it's a class 2 road. But it's just like my road, my road is a class 2 road and that's a town road.
but it's not, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's,
Yeah.
I had the same question, Larry.
Yeah.
Let's do some more kind of
And the other
confirming
question
with
I have
Bethany
is,
and we'll,
have we ever kept track of how much money we put into 58?
yes, we do. We,
And how much versus the state aid we get?
we have
Yes.
that, we have that
We have those
And
calculation.
we use that, any of those numbers as leverage?
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's
why we're doing
that's
the
the
number
plan.
counting of
That's
travel.
part of this process is to go to the state with the
Yeah.
car counting and say, look at these metrics.
And then go with what we spent.
Yeah.
And
So that is part of
Try to
the,
get more
part of the
state
plan
aid.
is that.
Yeah.
Let's go to Harvey, yep.
I'd like a second opinion on the status of that road.
Yeah.
Whether it's a state road or a town road, I don't think you can just call one person and say, "Yep, that's it.
yeah, well, I mean,
We'll look into it.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
I mean,
Yeah.
typically typically Bethany says stuff and I trust her.
Yeah,
But we'll,
It doesn't matter in trust.
well, I know. I'm just saying it's usually a reliable
But, I
source,
mean-
but we will look into it more.
We are in the process of trying to get more money for
Yeah.
the road because of the traffic on the road now, so.
We're gonna go to Barb next.
Barb Hodges. I just wanna reiterate, Tuska had a good point. The roads in town were built in the 1800s. I don't know how far down all the roads go, but Hazen's Notch Road, Regan Road, they're very old roads, and my hope would be that we would do some engineering work on all the town dirt roads to see where they are assessed, and they probably need to go taken all the way down and redone. and getting more money from the state is a great thing, but if we don't fix the problem, you're just putting the Band-Aid on it, and we're gonna keep having issues. That's my
Barb?
concern, is that we're gonna get 4 guys grading the road, but you're not, they're not out there digging up the road and
Yeah, doing the base.
doing it.
You want to pause for 1 second and just anybody who is on the Zoom call right now, if you'd like to chime in on this, feel free to either raise your electronic hand or just turn your camera on and wave furiously at the camera. Arnold, go. I can hear you, Arnold. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Charlie. This question pertains to you. Now, seems like maybe a couple of years ago, I was at a select board meeting, and it was in the fall, early fall, and somebody commented on what we had left to do on the back roads to get prepared for the winter. And if I'm right, Mark commented that all we need to do is take the crown off the road. Now, am I accurate saying that, Mark?
Well, we try to level the roads out so it's easier to plow. I mean, we don't take a complete crown off, but we kind of, we grade them in the fall once more time, before winter.
My comment basically is, when I heard saying to take the crown off the road, when you take a crown off the road, where's the water set? Right it has no place to go.
Well, I mean, you don't completely take it off. Well, you don't completely take the crown. I mean, you just lower it down a little bit so that you still have a crown water going off the roads. You don't.
So, okay, my other comment is, so why do we even bother to do that if we run chains all winter long? You're worried about plowing the roads. Why do we need to crown off the road?
Well, I mean, we just do a final grading before winter. I mean, it's not necessarily taking all the crown off, it's just a final grading. We run chains mostly all winter, yeah.
I thought you said the crowning had more to do with plowing. Like, was it the plowing itself or the traction? I mean,
the plowing itself.
I mean, just to clarify, it sounds like Arnold's getting it traction with chains and you're talking about snow maintenance. So I don't know if we're talking about 2 different things here or.
I mean, we don't completely take the crown off, it's just we regrade the roads. I mean, you need more of a crown in the summertime, there's more rain and stuff. And usually the winter, once you grade them in the fall, usually they're good for the winter, but not anymore because it keeps thawing out and, all through the winter.
Is that standard?
Can I just want to let, did you get your question answered, Arnold, or do you?
Well, they're saying that you're doing it basically for which way? Is the plowing or is it the traction? Is to stay on the road. If you get more of a crown, obviously you're gonna have a little more problems as far as staying on the road.
Yeah, that's
plowing,
some of the
correct?
issue. Yeah, correct. Even with chains, when you have too much of a crown, it brings you towards the ditch,
Right. Well, you might change all winter. I don't understand unless the umpire has a bigger issue to it than actually staying on the road. Why are we taking crown off the road? Because the water, the more crown you got, where's the water gonna go? Off the road.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
If you got ditches there.
yeah.
And that's another thing too, your ditches, I heard you guys been talking, your ditches you're way behind on your ditches.
Yeah, we know that. We've done a lot of ditching this summer.
Your water can't go nowhere if the ditches are full.
And that's why the roads get muddy, because there's no place for the water to go, so they go in the road.
Correct.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of ditching this year, trying to hit those spots.
And it should have been done a long time ago, but I'm just saying.
I know, we're behind. We're trying to catch up.
I'm not saying the Southfields aren't doing some damage, but like Jordan commented earlier, and somebody else.
No, I agree 100%. Our roads are not up to speed, and yeah, and it's not just because of sap trucks. I mean, it's a combination of things.
So many more people living on these back roads too.
Yeah.
There's more traffic and everything else that way, then I gotta maintain the back roads also with a higher budget.
Yeah.
You know, I know I'm just saying, you know,
Okay, thanks, Arnold.
that's my feeling.
Yeah.
I just want to pause one more second, just because we're on the Zoom. Anybody else on the Zoom, if you want to chime in, feel free to come off or turn on your camera at this point. If not, we'll continue in the room, but if you do want to come off camera and say something, please do. Did you have a, yep, go ahead.
My name is Diane, and I have a couple, thoughts, I guess. It strikes me that probably if we sat in this room and just brainstormed, we could generate a list. Probably in our heads, we probably have similar lists of solutions. You know, a couple things that have been mentioned are using large float tires on the SAP trucks. Somebody mentioned hiring more employees, but maybe that, contracting with more folks, getting help from communities that don't have as much impacts, hiring out-of-state folks like happened recently with the with our utilities, bringing in Massachusetts help. Paving more roads, obviously, right? But it's hard to weigh in on these solutions without having concrete numbers, without understanding, how much does it cost to pave X amount of roads. I think there are some concrete numbers you could generate and share with everybody to have sort of a better conversation on what's actually cheapest, before having a conversation about who should pay. I think it's helpful to talk about solutions and how much they cost, and then have the conversation about how are we gonna basically pay for that as a community amongst us all. Because I think, one of the things I noticed was this conversation was labeled sugaring, right? Which is fair enough, but I think that it kind of indicates that the problem is sugaring when, as people have discussed, I think a better problem would be impassable roads, right? And the impassable roads affect everybody, including sugars who need to have their employees get there, and including sugars who need to have SHAP trucks run through. For instance, on my road, it turns into a one-lane road in the winter effectively. And if my car gets stuck on that road, the SAP trucks can't get through, and maybe they would pull me out, but that's definitely gonna impact them. And there was definitely moments when they were very close to getting stuck this spring. And so I think framing the conversation around impassable roads could be helpful, and I'd love to see this conversation continue, but with concrete numbers. I would love to see those numbers somebody was mentioning. How much does it cost to maintain the roads?
Well, we are getting those
Is
numbers
that
together.
even possible? How out of sight is that price compared to other solutions?
Yeah, so I will just note that as part of the process, and some of these numbers I think are in the draft right now, we are trying to get those so we can look at estimates of paving to culverts to mile of XYZ. So, and I just want to also reiterate that, the ask of the board from, again, enough people that we did it was to have a conversation about sugaring. This is not the nexus center point of this overall strategic road conversation. And hopefully it's not coming across as being framed that that's kind of the problem. This was one part of a much bigger conversation that we're looking to have. So I just wanted to hopefully make that clear to folks that hopefully if the framing wasn't clear that way, that's what we're trying to do. I do want to give folks who have not had a chance to speak yet a chance. So, do you want to? I don't think you've spoken yet, have you? If not, just go for it.
Bruce Mercy. I'm a small sugar maker. I got 700 taps up on the Reagan Road. Normally, 90% of the time I go up and get a load of sap. It's better when I get off that road, my load of sap, than it is when I go up. Because I put water bars in my tractor. If it starts to break up, I take my tractor. I do have flotation tires on my trailer. Traffic is horrendous. Most of the people that complain about the road, when I'm tapping next to the road, if they don't go up and down the hill 20 times a day, they're not going up and down once.
That's a big issue. That's a big issue too.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But then the whole deal with throwing out the blacktop, get some numbers, but it's gonna scare the shit out of you.
Oh, for paving?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, trust me, yeah.
You gotta have a base before you do it.
Yeah.
And to pave,
Yeah.
there's no base in Montgomery on these back roads.
Yeah.
It's not Montgomery's, it's just the way, and this isn't isolated issue with Montgomery.
Yeah.
Fairfield, anybody that's got dirt roads, is just, this weather pattern, frost is getting draining deeper,
Yeah.
comes out sooner, more times a year. My driveway, you know, same thing, the more traffic I get, the harder it goes in, the harder it comes out, the more muddier it gets.
Yep. All right, anybody who's not had a chance to speak tonight that would like to, again, I'll go to the Zoom. This is the last call on the Zoom. If you haven't had a chance to chime in and you want to, feel free to come off or come on camera. Okay, not hearing anybody on the Zoom. Anybody in the room who hasn't had a chance to talk?
Talked to us already, so I can wait.
Well, because we do have a fair amount of other stuff on the agenda tonight that we do want to move through. So at this point, I'm going to close this conversation. This is not a one and done topic, this road stuff. So we're going to keep working on this, that draft plan. And I will reiterate, it is a very much draft plan. There's stuff in there that's like topic, figure it out, right? But we don't want to talk about it. So please take it with a grain of salt, but review it, get back to us with comments.
Yeah.
Come to future conversations about this. This was not like a one-off thing tonight.
It's a work in progress.
So I appreciate everyone's time coming out tonight. You've got our email addresses too, montgomeryselectboard@gmail.com. So if you've got additional comments you want to share at any point, please email that. It goes to everyone on the board. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So we are going to pivot to a next agenda item. At this point, just to stop any disruption, you're all welcome to stay. But if anybody wants to cut out at this point, we'll take a beat and let folks go. That way,
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing me.
There's some really big holes.
Yeah. Yeah. On your road?
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Like somebody sat there with a truck or something, brakes on, just spot. They're like 2 1 foot.
all right. So at this point, we're gonna go to visitors. We already heard from Lou Bushy, Lorraine, and Mark. You guys asked to be on agenda tonight, so thank you for coming. This is regarding Vincent's Bridge swimming hole, so the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm over there. So I'm gonna come over here. So Mark and I live, you can come with me. So we own, well, we don't own, we have on our road one of the watering holes that people like to use. And we are non-residents, we.
Hold the door for a second, just to.
We,
3-hole?
no, so we are Vincent's Bridge
Vincent's
Road,
Bridge.
it's off 118, it's the turn, if you're coming from Montgomery, off of Jolly. So there's a town road, there's a bridge, and then there's our road. And then off the town road is a little piece of road, and then there's
Which goes right into the river.
which goes into the river, and then on the other side of the river is a big peninsula where people like to sit and swim. The reason we're here tonight, several reasons, is one is the garbage, which as far as I can understand is just gonna be a thing, and Mark and I are committed to just cleaning it up. But our issue is people who drive through the river, on the river with their pickup trucks to the peninsula. And I understand that it's illegal to take your car, your pickup truck through the river.
Is that
So-
correct?
Is that correct?
There's instances where for certain uses you can drive through a river.
Is it an acceptable
My
use?
understanding is that recreational driving of a vehicle in a state river is not legal.
Over to our property as well. I mean, it's not like I wanna put no trespassing, I want people to use it.
We do not wanna shut this down, we want people to use it,
Just to respect it.
we want them to respect
Yeah.
it. So we have gone, so that little spit of land that goes down onto the river, that little
Off the
spit of
town.
Yeah.
road is owned by the St. Onges. So we have gone over to them and they have said, no problem, they are willing to put up 2 big boulders
Or whatever it takes.
or whatever it takes so that people can approach the area but can't get down and get across.
That would probably be a
So
good
they
group.
have said yes, we've gone there twice,
But you guys and others are keeping them so busy.
but nothing has happened. So we are here tonight wondering if the town can help us ask
Either-
our neighbors to do this because it's a pollution problem.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here.
Great. Well, thank you for coming tonight. We've had this conversation with a number of landowners, at least in my tenure on the board. Most recently, Creamery Bridge was the one where a very similar issue where it was people leaving the town's right of way and accessing private property. I think the very short answer is that there's limited stuff we can do once we get outside of the town's right of way. One, legally, two, from a private benefit on private land standpoint, in terms of doing things for landowners on their properties that's not associated with town road. So my immediate take is we cannot go put up boulders outside the town's right of way.
I don't think they were saying that. They're
We're not
saying
asking, we're
Not as
asking.
much, not really.
They're
Yeah.
saying-
If you can.
Asking
And
if we
so,
can ask.
I know,
Right.
and I was getting there.
Yes.
We can certainly talk to the St. Anges. There's not much leverage we have.
No, and
I will say the St. Anges have been amazing partners in the past with both emergency situations and looking at long-term things. So I will say they've been amazing to work with and have given a lot of time.
Yeah, this is.
I just don't,
we
I
have-
don't wanna really, come down or push them and, it's just, I don't wanna keep going back and asking them.
Yeah.
But, I just.
And our reasoning is because it's polluting the river when
Well, I
people
mean,
drive
yeah.
their pickup trucks and their cars over to the peninsula.
Yeah.
I want the peninsula open, I want people to use it, I want people to
Yep.
Yeah,
access
walk in.
it.
Pick up
I'm
their
not
garbage.
asking anyone to not use
No,
it.
100%.
What I'm trying to do is get what's not allowed.
Yep.
Sort of, if they won't, if you can put a sign up, can the city put a sign up
Yeah, so
saying?
can I,
downtown?
let me finish where I was going.
Okay.
I was going somewhere. So what I would say that you could contact, because this is where it gets into their wheelhouse, is the Missisquoi River Basin Association and the Wild and Scenic River Study Committee. Not only is that their wheelhouse, but they also have funding available. I don't know exactly how it's structured right now, whether it's through certain projects or grant cycles, but they have funding available from the feds to do work to improve safe river access, improve environmental conditions, look at the issues that you're talking about in terms of degraded in-stream habitat. So this sounds like something, and I cannot speak for them, I can't speak for John or Lindsay, but they would probably be the most
We've had
likely
Lindsay up.
partners.
Yeah, well, Lindsay came.
Lindsay came out.
So have you talked to them about whether they could provide some assistance funding wise?
They're the
Well,
one
when
who
they kinda pushed us
suggested
to-
to us to go to St. Ange to ask St. Ange to put up those
I
barriers.
mean, in terms
Yeah.
of funding, we've offered to pay
We'll
St.
pay
Ange
for
for
it.
it. That's
I
not
mean-
even the issue.
Yeah.
They're saying, no, it's just, rocks.
Just time
It's just
and
time.
they're busy.
Okay.
But-
So,
So.
we're really not, just if anyone's talking to them and mentions it, it'd be great.
Okay.
We just want
Yeah.
to
We
support
can,
it.
yeah, we can certainly bring it up in conversation. And I think from a moral support standpoint, we're right with you.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah, I think we get into like having, our, what we can and can't do deals with town right of way and town work and what we're doing on private property versus town property right of way, so,
And they did do some signage for us as well, but, more just sort of,
yeah.
take, out.
I mean, we saw the big boulders they put up around the baseball field, so kids wouldn't go
Yeah.
into wheelies, so we know there's boulders around. We just
Yeah.
want two placed
Yeah.
sort of in front of that street.
Asking the Herchabees.
They don't own that.
Well, it's just,
It's
the
owned
thing
by
is, it's
St.
owned by
Ange.
St.
Yeah.
St. Ange's own the land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You can't put boulders on somebody else's
Herchabees
land.
might
Yeah.
They'll
Without their
do it.
permission.
He'll do it?
Trust me.
I,
I've known Artie for 100 million years.
Is there
and
someone, is there
No,
someone?
just
Leave it
Okay.
with you?
all right.
he'll do. It's gonna get done.
Okay,
That'd be
all right,
great.
we're not
Yeah.
That's just my
Yes.
knowledge of how he works. It's on his list.
We've only talked to one of the.
No, we talked to his wife.
Talk to his wife?
Mhm.
Okay, we're happy with that.
Randy's wife.
We talked to
Randy's
Randy's
wife.
wife.
Yeah,
Randy's wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, in our conversations with them, we can certainly mention it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Great.
Want to make it as clean as possible.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the culvert.
Thank you. Yes, we got that fixed. Yeah.
All right, so we're, yes, go ahead, Lynn.
I just wanna say that before Mark and Lorraine came to you, they came to our conservation group and we had this discussion, was it last spring or last fall?
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Last
and Lindsay Wright and Carissa and a bunch of us, we had like a date, a field trip out there
We
to
brainstormed.
check out everything. And we tried to help them, and that's when we suggested for them to go talk to St. Ange. So, I mean, they approached us first and we tried to help, but it didn't help.
Okay.
So that's why we're coming to you, basically, is what I want to say.
But with all the rain, that insulate keeps shrinking, so, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I just want to
Great,
say.
well, thank you, Lynn.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna keep going on our agenda here, so we can work through it, because we're coming up on 8 o'clock.
I want to talk about the roads.
So, next we're gonna go to, we've already covered the J State Forest under old business. We're going to the municipal wastewater, and the first item here is Chris, the response to your letter from August 9th. And I think, is your neighbor on the Zoom? Is it Mike?
Mike.
Okay.
He's not there?
Hi, Mike.
Is he there?
Yeah.
He's on the Zoom right now. So Mike, I hope you can hear us. And you're welcome to come on the camera or keep the camera off. It's up to you. But can you hear us? Can you just give us a hi sign?
Oh, that's the follow-up.
Mike, are you able to hear us okay?
Yes, he's there.
I see him and
I'm talking to him.
he's off mute. I just want to make sure he can hear us. Can anybody on the Zoom hear us? We checked.
Arnold heard us.
Arnold heard us, and Roberta heard us earlier. Okay, thanks, Arnold. All right. Well, if you want
I can hear you, he said.
he can. Okay, great. All right. Yeah, Chris, you had submitted a letter. Did someone just take the letter?
Yes.
Can I have that back? Sorry.
I took it.
I thought it was sitting right in front of me, and I thought, I gotta go. So back at the end of July, the 23rd, you sent us a letter. We didn't get it till the 9th, and it was asking to put these topics on an upcoming agenda, which is why it's on tonight's agenda. Your letter raised a number of questions related to the wastewater project, and had a specific ask for our town's attorney to respond. Sorry, I'm having an issue with my. There we go. We asked the town's attorney to respond, and we did have the attorney draft a letter in response to the questions. I gave you a hard copy. If you'd like a digital copy, or if Mike would like a copy emailed to him, if I can just get his email address, we're more than happy to send it to anybody who wants a copy. I guess I don't want to sit here and just read from a letter, because it's long and it's kind of monotonous. But I think the three questions that the attorneys kind of took on, which were kind of pointed towards the legal aspects, had to do with whether can we continue with the proposed community wastewater system considering changes to the scope of the project without further voter approval. These are the questions that were in the letter. Do recent changes to Act 250 impact the authority of the town to proceed with constructing and implementing the community wastewater system? And does Montgomery's community wastewater system meet the definition of, quote, sewer, as the term is used in Act 181, an act relating to community resilience and biodiversity projection through land use, commonly referred to as Act 250 reform? So again, this is all in the response from the attorneys, but to the first question, can we continue with the proposed community wastewater system considering changes to the scope of work without further voter approval? The attorney's answer was yes. There is a lot of more response here in the letter, again, that you got a copy of that I can email to anybody, but the response was yes. The response to the second question around did changes to Act 250 impact the authority of the town to proceed with constructing the system? The answer is no. Recent changes do not impact that authority. And then does Montgomery's community wastewater system meet the definition of sewer? The answer there is yes. Montgomery's community system is unique in its design, but it probably will meet the traditional sewer definition given the synergy there. What we're building is kind of new, so as far as looking at the definitions they used, this kind of a system wasn't in play then, but it is considered a sewer in that term based on our understanding.
I got a question. My
Yeah.
name's Teresa. Where's the poo go? You're just doing the water from people's septic systems So why do they need a whole new septic tank when the poo's still gonna be in there? We still have to pump out the poo.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Well, you don't, well,
Damn it.
so hit it multiple times. Yes, this way the system is designed, it's a community wastewater system. Individual properties, or in some cases, joint properties, will have tanks, septic tanks. They might be upsized in certain instances, but that holds the biosolids that you associate with poo. And then the effluent water then goes through the community wastewater system to the disposal field, which in the center is up 242 on the property across from Prairie Farm Road. The pumping of the tanks themselves will be conducted by the town on a regular basis as defined through the operations and maintenance of the system. The reason we're doing that is because of the design of this system is designed in a way where that is the most cost-effective solution to managing that. If we had put in a full traditional sewer that folks think about, which would have been different in a number of ways, including pipes down Main Street with spurs off of it, it would have included a lot more pumps, a lot more infrastructure, and it would have essentially taken the current budget and just made it exponentially bigger. So that's the reason. Short answer is money is why we designed the system the way we did.
But what happens to the poo?
So the poo gets pumped, it gets put on trucks, and it gets taken to a facility, which
Do
then
we have to pay for it?
no. So
Yes,
you don't pay for you don't pay specifically for that truck pumping. Like it's not like the truck comes and pumps your system and hands you a bill. There are annual user fees associated with those on the system, similar to the water system. And so the operations and maintenance of the system itself, which is not just pumping poo, but everything, is baked into the calculations of those user fees. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still don't like it.
Okay.
Half the people in this town don't understand it either, and they don't know what they're getting into. So you gotta get up to more people and tell them, because they don't know, and half of them don't come here.
I know, and trust me, we've tried.
I'll go door to door and I'll tell them everything.
I have gone to people's houses personally with copies of the engineering reports and walked through it. I mean, we were told once that if we put the things on fluorescent paper and posted them, then they might be seen. I mean, we've tried so many things, but I hear you, understand it. Chris, yeah.
Yeah, my concern is the fact that the laws have been changed on Act 250.
Yes.
And now you can have multi-unit, multi-dwelling units anywhere where there's a sewer and town water, and it can't be stopped by the select board. So basically what I can see is like a whole bunch of like condos built down along Main Street and then out back. And I'm not really wanting to pay for the rest of my life or something so some people can get rich while they develop Montgomery so we don't recognize it anymore. And it's only going to be centered in the center. Then this development won't be in the village. It won't be out along the riverway or nothing. It'll be right in the center, all development.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct. The changes to Act 250, some of them did have, and it's a very, very dense, very thick bill, but there were changes around allowable uses, also things around parking in that bill. And I spent a lot of time in the State House testifying to these things, and so did other members from rural communities to try to get people to understand that we're not all, other towns. So I do understand what you're saying, and I think through the revised zoning and town plan, there are things we can do to help influence certain things. There's certain things we can do to help influence.
They specifically said the town can't stop these multi-unit dwellings now.
We can't,
They need
yeah,
housing.
in the fact of the higher density housing, in those ways we cannot stop them, but there are ways that we can influence what that development looks like and the conditions around it. That being said, if we're gonna have higher density housing in town and provide more affordable housing, workforce housing, the center is the place it's gotta be put. No one's gonna put.
Affordable housing.
What's that?
It's not gonna be affordable housing. I'd be happy if it was all Section 8 housing, but it won't be.
Why do you say that?
Because we're sitting at the bottom of a ski mountain. They're gonna have to force some of it to be affordable in order to get it through, but most of it's gonna be rich people housing.
I think
here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't talk to hypotheticals or what might happen, but there's things we can do to help influence what's developed and what's built. But I think just saying that you're gonna end up with a bunch of rich people's houses back behind Main Street, I don't know. I mean, like,
Well, that's what he
Charlie.
plans on doing, is building all kinds
That's
of
what I'm
stuff
saying.
back there.
have you talked to Walt about that?
I don't talk to anybody.
Is that what he said to you?
I'm more concerned about the houses that are there now,
Okay.
coming down like they do in all the
Is there a
places.
specific development he's referring to?
I think you're referring to the land behind Main Street that
Wow.
Walt and Abe bought.
Yeah, and then
Well, he's
they bought
not
the
doing nothing
sewer,
on that.
the leach field too. Didn't
They
buy
can't
the
even get a
leach
creamy
field?
shop operating.
I know, they
What?
can't get a creamy shop for
Did they buy the leach
it.
field too?
Good call.
We own that property.
Yeah, but you bought it from,
Walt and Abe own it.
Walt had bought that property previously to
But
develop.
I'm just, it's nothing to do with specific person
Yeah.
or specific development.
He
What I'm
could put in
saying
a
is,
road back
the houses are get torn down and multi-unit stuff will get built up. You won't recognize this place. I mean, some people might be for that, that's fine.
So I guess what I'd say is, one of the reasons
I'm
we're
not
doing
gonna pay
this,
for it.
one of the reasons we're doing this is to make the current affordable housing stock affordable and viable. I mean, you look at some of the houses down on, what's the street down, where the mill houses are?
Mill Street.
Mill Street, right? So that, for example, the blue house that's right there, that's falling apart. The economics of redoing that place do not work because the kind of septic system you have to put in is completely unaffordable, and nobody who has any money to do that kind of work would even look at doing it. A septic system in the community would make that lot viable for someone to come in and rebuild and design. So, you know, and the guy that's doing the one next door, I'm pretty sure he's doing that with the expectation the system's gonna be designed, so he doesn't have to do the wastewater. So I'm not discounting all of what you're saying, but I think you can look at it in both ways, in terms of maintaining the viability of existing housing stock. And again, when you look at buildings coming down and then having somebody build something you don't recognize, like some brutalist concrete structure or whatever, that's where our town zoning bylaws come in around what can and can't be built in certain areas due to rural character. And they're so what I would say is, talk to the planning commission. They're redoing the zoning bylaws right now, and if these are totally valid concerns, make sure they're baked into the zoning.
Well, I don't know, I'm just saying, I don't wanna pay for it.
You'll be saving money on your tax bill when there's more to the
I don't-
grand list.
I
You'll
don't
be-
know about
Okay, so we're gonna
that.
go.
I'm aware about it.
So we're gonna go in order, yep,
I'm on the planning commission, and we're addressing this through the lens of housing shortage. And regional planning is inputting. We are discussing smaller footprints and slightly elevated heights at this point. Nothing that's going to be mammoth in town, but it'll be different, for sure. Right now, I think there are maybe 2 structures in town that are 3 stories high.
yeah. But some of that height language got mended and scrapped because enough of us went down there and said, if you wanna make us have to have 5-story buildings, buy us a friggin' ladder truck.
Right.
You know, so we did push back a lot on a lot of the Act 250 stuff that came through that bill to make sure that it was equitable for every rural community and not just your St. Albans, Stows, Burlingtons.
Well, I hear it way more than I thought I would, that back street, north or whatever it is, the one that Abe had, Walter bought, is all being speculated that that's gonna be developed. Do you know that it's not?
Walt and Abe have talked about various plans for housing development back there. They've talked about plans for affordable housing development back there. And I think one of the things that they've both said from the get-go is, if we build what we are talking about in terms of affordable housing, they can only do that with a wastewater system.
Right.
Without one, what they would do is they would chop it up into 4-acre lots and have single-family homes. And that's when you get the people who I think we're talking about are more affluent, wealthy, that can afford that.
Does the town have any input into Section 8 housing? In other words, do you have to approve it as a select board? The state can force it on you?
I don't know actually what we have or don't have related to Section 8 housing.
I think that has to do with the landlord.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so it's between the landlord and the state?
That's my experience with it. And the landlord has to meet certain expectations that the state has as far as regulations, and safety and this, that, the other thing. But I don't believe that that's through the town at all. I think that that's a
No, it's a state through the
It's a
landlord
state
because the state
landlord.
subsidizes the landlord, so the landlord has to answer to the state.
So if you put up apartments all the way through, or somebody put up apartments all the way through that back street that's not built yet, they could make it entirely Section 8 housing if they wanted a guaranteed rental payment, for example.
I don't know, to be honest, what
Kinda
our,
what you're saying.
what our ability, I don't know. I don't think we have a clear answer on
No,
that.
you don't have a say, but
No.
the landlord can do whatever he wants in terms of
They could reach out to
format.
the state, it's also the availability.
Yeah, again, I don't know.
There's a pretty good need for it.
Yes.
Larry.
What's this high-density housing gonna do to the school system?
What's it gonna do to the school system? I mean, wherever any house is built in town, there's a chance that there might be kids there and there's kids go to school. So if you've got more kids in school, then I imagine the school budget would go up. But I just want to be really clear, like, we have absolutely no say in the school budget. What I would say is that those new houses that get built pay property taxes. So more development, more grand list value, and assuming that, you know, the municipal budget doesn't explode, which I think we've done a relatively good job at the past however many years. Bigger pie, smaller piece. So you could see your municipal property taxes not be impacted. I mean, that's the hope, right? Larry.
Just for clarification, isn't that the property we're referring to included in the floodplain?
There's a part of the property out back which is in, depending on which 100, 500 year flood you talk about, which is now the like every other week flood. Yes, there are parts that are mapped in the floodplain. So any development back there would have to either deal with floodplain or, you know, elevate in a way or build in a way to address that, or have the insurance to address it, but that's outside of our purview. I thought I heard Mike chime in. And again, Mike, you're welcome to chime in here.
If you don't have a mic, he's been texting me,
Okay.
okay?
I just want to make it clear that you are welcome to jump in and join us if you want to.
I got text
But
from
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is from Mike. 250 can force it, he says. Town can't stop it with this 250. So if this change in the 250 changes on what we voted on, changes whole complex of the town,
So Act 250 would
will
change.
change everything. He's been reading up on this, he's a lawyer, well, not a lawyer anymore,
Yeah.
but he's read up on all this
So I get what you're
stuff.
saying, but
The 250 can force it. You guys, the town won't have a say in it. If these people that wanna build all this crap go to the 250, you guys can't stop them.
250 can't stop them.
we can't stop them, but we can put conditions that influence how and what they build. The density,
Like Sarah Matthews, that's my
but I think to his main question, that, yeah, the changes to Act 250 change the landscape on any number of things around
But it
development,
changed
whether it's.
the way we voted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good, thank you, Mike.
We got you.
On this for like half an hour, so I apologize. I don't Zoom very much.
Thank you.
So my name is Mike Sarnacki. I'm a part-timer. I've been up at 463 Hazen's Notch. I bought Sunny Shelter, Gloria Shelter's house. We bought that back in 2007. Absolutely love Montgomery, love everything that it is. My real point on it is, Charlie, is that what was proposed to the town and what was voted on from the town was a scope that enveloped both the center and the town. That has changed because now it's just the center. I know you've got that opinion in that regard. But also since that voting, the 250 amendments went through, which mandate that if the state requirements are met, the town has no say with regards to the density of the housing. It must allow for it. And so it's only allowed for if you have access to water and sewer. Now, of course, we know this project that we keep calling a sewer project is a community septic. We all agree on that.
Mhm.
All right, so it's a community septic, but with this, that allows for any development, and now it's just concentrated in the center. And second, it's any of those parcels, we talked about that parcel that's in the back, that just happens to be owned by the same people that sold the town the what's going to be the leach field, but also the housing that's there now. Any of those structures can now be taken down, and 4 unit buildings can be put there where there were single family, and there's nothing the town can do about it. So that Mill Street, every house could come down, a 4 unit could be put on. Every house that's on Main Street, River Street, taken down, 58 taken down, not in the village, just in the center. So that means with this change in the scope, that would change the entire complexion of the town, and there's nothing the town can do about it based off of this amendment. So with that being said, the question is this still the same project that was presented to the townspeople and voted on by the townspeople, or should it be, whether legally or equitably, put back to the voters to say, is this the change that we want to the town now that we know what it truly will be doing to the town? And isn't that the obligation of the select board to make sure that the town and the townspeople know exactly what we're getting from this project?
Yeah, I understand the question. So again, from a purely legal context, the changes to Act 250 do not have any bearing on the scope of the project as it was presented to the voters and passed. Now, to your point about practical implications, somebody could, once designed, come in here, knock everything down and put up condos. They could. So, I mean, the kind of not gray area, bright line answer I can give you is that legally, like, no, there's no change to the scope of what we're building. There's no change to the scope of as presented and voted on. So the legal authority is still 100% there. I guess to your broader question of the world has changed that this project is advancing in, it's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we can have differing opinions on this in terms of whether, like, is this the point that enough has changed to go back? I mean, my opinion is no. I don't think we're going to get a bright line legal opinion on that question. I do understand where you're coming from, though. So I guess I don't have a great answer for you there. Because I mean, because the state could also change any number of things related to state law that could. I mean, so like
now you're getting into speculation. We know hard and fast, and I don't mean to argue with you. I mean, you have a valid point. There's no question that you have, the honorable position here, but and what you're looking to do. But the fact that you're struggling, Charlie, says that this should be something that townspeople decide, not you or any of the select board, not me, but based off of, and it's not speculation or what the state could do. The state has done it. 250 has changed. And it really is incumbent upon you as the select board, both ethically and morally, to let the townspeople know this is out of our control with regards to the complexion of the town based off of this new change. And is this what we want before we move forward with any additional funding? And I think based off of the amount of the changes, and that's our whole point on this, the amount of the change and the scope of the change, now is the time to do it. And it makes sense to revisit it for the townspeople. Are they getting what they thought or knew they were getting? And I think ethically, do you not feel compelled that let the townspeople make the decision as opposed to what your position may be or what my position may be?
Yeah, understood.
So what's the select board's position? I know there's other select board members there. What's your position?
Oh, sorry. If you guys want to respond to that, you're welcome to. Not Tuscan. Just let me give the board a chance.
I mean, I know Act 250 has changed, but I don't see how it's changed the scope of the work we're doing on the septic. I mean, on the sewer system. I mean, and I don't see why the town still doesn't have control on what we can build in town. I mean,
Can I ask a hypothetical?
yeah.
Hang on. Let me just let the board respond to this.
I mean,
to Mike's point.
That's what
Well,
I'm
and
seeing here.
Second of all, I mean, we do have zoning laws. So it's not like
I just can't imagine that people are gonna jump to bulldoze their homes and build 3-story condos or apartment buildings. I just happen to know that, I mean, most of us have lived here for a very long time, and one of the owners of that property that people are worried about right now has grown up here since he was a baby, and there's no way that that is not in their grand plan of what they're gonna do back there. So, that's what I know.
No pressure if you want to jump
I mean,
in.
I just always, it's hard for me to see any sort of disadvantage to putting this system in from the get-go. I've been for it because, for one thing, the water, quality that's leaching into the rivers from all of the existing septic systems. Not to mention that once this is in place, the amount of cost savings for the people who are using the system, ultimately, they won't have to replace their septic tanks, they won't have to pump them. I mean, that's huge personal savings for people. And the end all be all is if someone owns property, they can do what they want with their property within a certain guideline that exists. And I don't think that I foresee everybody on Main Street selling their land, bulldozing their houses, and like you say, putting up condominiums. That's just not Montgomery. And if that is what happens, then that was kind of going to happen regardless. And we can't economically develop as a community if we don't have a system that supports it. And economic development is important just for the survival of this town. We rely on tourism, we rely on the mountain economy. It's important to put in infrastructure that reflects that relationship.
Good.
I don't think that I can speak in an informed way. I need more time to look at the implications of Act 250 and what that could do to sort of town authority with regard to zoning, but not just in through the lens of this project, but just in general. For myself, I need to take time to review those changes and what that means from a planning perspective for the town.
Yeah. I mean, Mike and Chris have a valid point that with the changes to Act 250, the density thing, we cannot stop that. Our zoning can influence how development happens as opposed to what in that case. But I do think we are engaging in a couple different hypotheticals here, right? So this system goes in, the Act 250 changes happen. To your point, yeah, everything on Main Street could get bulldozed and we could have nothing but condos. Or we could not put the system in and have all these systems fail, the houses be derelict and delinquent, and have a bunch of blighted properties that no one lives on Main Street.
Yeah.
Things could go in different directions, so we can engage in hypotheticals in either way. I don't think either of us can kind of say what that future is going to look like, though.
So his interpretation is if it goes back to the voters and they vote it down, we won't have any mass condos down Main Street. That's basically his interpretation. That based on speculation.
Without the wastewater system, the density.
There can't be high density housing.
Well, the requirement that we allow that kind of density would not be in place without the system.
And that's what he wants to have.
I can't speak for Mike. Tosca.
I just wanna understand, the changes in Act 250 supersede our zoning, where if you get a permit to build a house and you have to put up the big P, that nobody can now weigh in on the change of character in the neighborhood and the
So
five criteria.
That's what I need to know
so
too,
there
Tosca.
are our zoning does have the ability, as I said, to dictate and put guardrails around how this occurs.
Okay.
But the what question, this density issue, is hard and fast. It is.
I understand they
Yeah.
want, take a single family home and turn it into a duplex. I was hearing
Exactly,
that from
yeah.
regional planning. But the question is, and it's the same as Emily, and I'll do my research, but do the changes to Act 250 supersede what already exists in our zoning, which allows the neighborhood, any 10 neighbors, to come to the DRB hearing when the permit goes up and say, we object to this design, we object to, it's gonna block my light, it's gonna do this, it's gonna change the nature. I mean, we've always had the ability to object to somebody building something, and at least that way the builder can meet with people, his neighbors, and say, that, if that's gone,
No.
okay. Cause that's the guardrail, as far as I can tell, right, where you can actually say.
That's like the local control piece that you and I are talking about.
That still exists.
That still exists to the
Okay.
degree that the zoning bylaws have that in there, but it's, so like,
So we can beef up our bylaws.
yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that's what I'm asking.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
What we can't say is you can't build that kind of density. We also can't say this new house has to have 2 parking spots, because Act 250, they said you can't, that was part of this bill too, you can't mandate 2 parking spots. So there's a lot of stuff in here that they have said,
And you try
like,
to push back on
what-
something.
yeah, but like, but so again, I go back to, there are concrete changes to the what question. The how question can still be influenced by zoning, town plan, local zoning. So Chris, yeah.
Yeah, how many, people that are involved in this planning, I don't know, you guys, whatever, are on this sewer system, are gonna have to pay for it for the rest of their life?
Are you?
From the beginning.
No, I just wanna know how many
Yeah, you
people are
wanna get
involved
this
now.
septic, Charlie? No,
Is
you're
anybody
not.
in here except for me
And
have to
we-
pay for this? That's what I was wondering. Is
I'll be
anybody else
paying for it.
on it? You're on it?
Yep.
Okay. I was just wondering, like, how many people, like, there seems to be a big push by people that don't have to pay for this.
Pushing for it.
Push for it. But I'm gonna have to pay for that for the rest of my life.
I would have thought the opposite.
I'd rather fix my own system. I'm not going on it, but
Okay.
that's besides the point.
We're gonna wrap this up pretty quickly, but yes,
Back to the septic system,
yeah.
you said earlier they're gonna put in new tanks.
They're either gonna put in new tanks, or depending on the age of the existing tank, they might reuse existing tanks.
Okay, so if the existing tank is okay, if it's concrete, it probably more likely will be,
Yeah.
then they will just hook onto that tank. And you eliminate your
The leach
field
field.
that's wherever it is.
Yes.
So you also mentioned something about pumping the tanks. Depending on the people in the house, so many, 2 or 3, 4 years, whatever.
I can't speak to the regularity of it,
That's
but,
what you should do.
well, I mean, this is all part of the getting the design, like, this is, we're working through all this.
You did say they would be pumping the tanks.
Yes, that they will do. I just can't tell you it'll be every year versus every 6 months versus every 10 years. What's that?
It depends on the use and, how much use and what you put in it.
Yeah.
And, okay, so you're gonna end up with a tank just like you have now. But your water, instead of going to a leach field, is gonna go to a main pipe and wherever that's gonna go.
Yeah.
So, but the tanks are gonna have to be pumped out every 2 or 3 years, depending on use and whatnot, all right? So why don't the town just pump the tanks, save the existing leach fields, and save yourself $15 million? Since you're gonna be pumping tanks anyway.
Because that's assuming that all of these leach fields in the center are completely functional, and they're not.
They would be if they've been taken care of.
I'm not gonna go down the who could have what and done what, but like, we would have to replace, I don't have a number, but like a significant number of the leach fields. And the problem is that a lot of the leach fields cannot be replaced as is due to the size of the parcels. So the existing conventional systems that were put in now, you cannot build there. They've got to be these highly engineered, elevated above ground systems like at the Jolly, what you see there, or other places. So to actually go in and make the systems there functional, it would take a significant amount of money to re-engineer each property to do that. So we could, but it would be redesigning a completely new system for each property and then going to pump the tanks, which the numbers wouldn't add up.
And we probably wouldn't get the funding
No.
that we get
That's
for
probably
it.
the
One
point.
last question.
Yes.
The economy, the way it is right now, I'm retired now, I'm living off my social security. Most of these people are on social security. How can they afford this next bill that they're gonna get? We already pay for water that I can't drink, my dogs don't even drink it. And now they're gonna have this septic that they gotta pay every 3 months. How are they gonna afford it? They can't afford the food that they put in their mouths right now. Have you guys thought about that? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's not fair. We have thought,
They thought about that.
I'm sure you did, but I just retired and I'm
understand
struggling with
it.
the money I am right now.
I understand
I
it.
can barely pay for the water that
Yeah.
I can't even drink.
Why can't you drink your water?
It's no
Because it's
good.
nasty.
It'll give you a bad headache, and if you put it on your wood stove, it'll make this cake all the way around your pan or whatever they put in it. I don't know what it is. Salt,
Okay.
salt, I have no idea.
And I,
The whole thing of it is, we just was on Facebook today with water test results, and Montgomery's came back extremely good.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that, tonight, that, good job to the water system people, because the tests that came back from the state test were excellent. It was on Facebook.
Okay, well, thanks. So Larry, we're gonna, it is 8:30 now.
Charlie, if I can make just one point, this is for the select woman, and this goes to the stopgaps relative to zoning. So I'm quoting off of the bipartisanpolicy.org. This is a Vermont nonprofit, bipartisanpolicy.org. And what they put on their site, if you want to look at this, the zoning reforms, the Home Act, which is the 250, municipalities must allow duplexes anywhere single-family homes are allowed and must allow 4-unit residential buildings on lots served by water and sewer infrastructure. Municipal bylaws must allow at least 5 units per acre. Affordable housing development may add additional units up to 40%. And the Home Act preempts municipal zoning ordinances to allow this to happen. That is again from the bipartisanpolicy.org. That's the effective 250. There are no safeguards that the town can put into its bylaws because it is preempted by the state law of the Home Act. And again, I just want to emphasize that while we're on this topic at this meeting. Please, if you would, do your research on that. But again, shouldn't the people of Montgomery understand that we are foregoing our own zoning to the purview of the state based off of this project as it exists now? And doesn't it make sense, and isn't it fair for the townspeople to decide if that's the direction they want this town to go? But thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye, Mike.
And if we can, and Mike, just if we can get your email address, I'm happy to send you copies of the attorney's responses. So feel free to, if you want to give Chris that or reach out, we can get you the digital copy of
we're
it.
gonna email it to him.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna pivot now. That was the municipal wastewater update. Streetscape project update. We had the Amendment 10 loan subsidy approval. That's a funding thing that I don't have the final documents on tonight.
Okay.
But we will bring that back. The PDF that was sent is formatted in a way where we can't open it, so we can't get that signed tonight. The streetscape project, we had our office hours last week. We had the public hearing. Things are moving forward on that front. Main thing right now there is clearing right-of-way, which the engineers are working on the process to get to do that. Once right-of-way is cleared, then we can go back to the state for the next steps with them. The Montgomery Water System, P.E.G, the preliminary engineering report, as folks remember, there's this other project that we got money to do a study on the water system. Mark and I met with the engineers last week on that. They've got some recommendations that we can consider and look at. I don't know, do you want to speak to anything specifically on that, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, we did pressure flow testing on all the hydrants for 3 years in a row. And they're saying we aren't getting the 800 to 900 gallons a minute, like at the school hydrant, and other hydrants aren't enough for the fire flow. So they had a plan together to put a booster pump at the pump station on 118 to boost the village pressure is fine. It's the center pressure. So they're sending this preliminary engineering report to the state. I mean, these grants, it's gonna be no cost to the users to upgrade this. But my feeling is, you know, the hydrant pressure is not a high priority on the state right now. I mean, the PFAs and all those things, so, I mean, this is going to the state to look at, but.
For funding.
For funding, but I don't see us getting funding for this. I mean, but
Okay.
we are going through the process.
Yeah, and we've
I
got
think there's
the,
higher priorities for water quality
yeah,
than worried about, you know, the fire flow,
yeah.
so.
But we do have the planning around it,
Yeah.
so that if we do decide to move on it at some point, we've got the engineering work.
Yeah, they're sending it in, so we'll see what the next step is, but, yeah.
So that's moving down to new business. So we already talked about Vincent's Bridge, swimming hole. Sorry. I didn't.
I'm here about my money.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you guys were gonna discuss that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
it's-
yep, it's right after this.
I didn't look at the
Yep.
agenda, sorry.
So open approach quote for municipal services. So this is from Liz. This quote before us tonight, which is $2,139.83, is from Open Approach for the replacement of our end-of-life WatchGuard firewall, along with the necessary network switch and wireless access points that need to be upgraded. Current firewall reached the end of life at the end of June, no longer supported, so it needs to be replaced with this new model. They initially pushed this off because they didn't know about status of the remodeling stuff we've been looking at and how that might factor into this. But they're now recommending that the necessary update be done before we run into any issues with the server or cybersecurity. So this, again, it's $2139.83. It's just to get the firewall on our digital systems upgraded. Any questions? Anyone want to see a copy of the quote? It's from Open Approach, our tech guys.
These are the ones we're working with, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's relatively straightforward, and
Yeah.
we kind of need it. kind of a must have.
Yeah,
I'll
Yeah.
make a motion to approve
yeah.
Okay.
the quote in the amount of $2,139.83.
Thanks, Suzanne. So we have a quote. We have a motion from Suzanne to approve the quote at $2139.83. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leanne. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the Open Approach quote for the firewall at $2139.83, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. Town Hall Committee. My brain is shot.
I get it.
The things that go in the ceiling.
Yeah, the heat pump.
Tiles.
The
No,
ceiling
tiles. The ceiling tiles
That's all
and
done.
the heat pump have been run through. They are in the warrants for tonight to sign. I do have a
Yeah.
copy of your current budget printout, just if you want it.
Yes, I do,
Um,
because we don't know where we are.
Yeah. So I can give this to you, but those are in there, they've been approved, the checks are in there to be processed. The one thing I will also tell you is that we did run through our insurance company on the food bank question. Insurance company has said basically that there's no problem with that. The risk management folks might come back with some guidelines just around kind of what
Okay,
kind of
so-
food might be accepted or not.
Alright, so circle back, we formed a 501c3 called Heartful Kitchen. The food bank will not work with municipalities.
Oh,
Apparently there's not a good track record, I don't know. So it's a non-corporate association, nonprofit association, so it's like the least,
so then are you leasing the space?
so the town hall committee is gonna decide whether we'll have an agreement that we'll write up between that and the town to keep it separate, but it's still it's just the umbrella that we have to run the food bank through if we wanna get food from the Vermont Food Bank. The Methodist Church, they were not willing to keep the umbrella, even though they just reapplied for the year. They needed to cut it off, because initially they would just move the location, and it's kind of the sponsor organization. So it's Tiff and I are on that paperwork as the contacts. But we will have to draw up some kind of agreement, whether it's with the town, it'll be the town and this group and we're part of the town hall committee, but there was no path forward to make the town the sponsor.
Okay, yeah, just figure out whatever the agreement's gonna look like. I picture it being a lease agreement essentially.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be something.
We'll
like
run
a
it by the
lease.
attorneys and then this board will have to approve it.
Yeah,
But-
that's what we
okay.
figured, but we set it up so that we can start September first. And in a lot of cases, you can do it with nothing, like you don't need any corporate organization, any nonprofit status, you can run a food bank for months.
Okay.
Then apply to the Vermont Food Bank for help. So it's just to get the food from them.
Okay.
We could do this completely as the town hall committee with no nonprofit and just figure out how to gather food.
Okay.
But that becomes a little
Problematic, yeah.
So-
No, it all makes sense. Let's just try to hammer out what this agreement looks like in the next week or two, just so that we can get it sealed
have
and
another
to our
meeting.
attorneys.
Yeah, I'll try.
No, just, yeah, cause I wanna make sure you guys are good to go. I
This
just,
time of year has been impossible, so
Yeah.
we didn't have our last meeting. It's the last hurrah before school starts,
Yep.
so.
no, I got you.
But we did have to move forward on it, or Lois, and right now, we're not operational. She's still running until September first. The freezer is down there, we did move equipment down.
Okay.
But other than that, so I will get on that, Joanne and I and Tiffany are gonna work on that.
So what about the heat pumps? What's the status of those?
It's,
I had to get the money.
Yeah.
the warrant is in there for
All
them.
the warrants for that's in there,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, so we're waiting on.
So
we're
once
waiting
that gets signed
Okay.
tonight, they can issue the checks.
Yeah.
Yep,
So, yep.
it's all good.
All right, thank you, Tosca.
Excellent, thanks guys.
We have no liquor licenses or tobacco licenses. There's no fleet permits tonight, so the next order of business would be a motion to adjourn.
Yep. I will make the motion to adjourn
I will
this
second that.
meeting.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn from Emily, seconded by Mark. Is there a second?
That was a second.
I mean, I'm sorry. My brain is like now completely shut off. Any discussion on the motion?
Wait, who seconded it?
Mark.
Mark?
I did.
Hearing no discussion, we will vote. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thanks everybody for hanging in there for a longer than usual meeting, and thanks everybody for coming. And that's it.